Aloha everyone. I am Kumu Kawika Foster, and I want to thank you for joining me here at the Mana Okahiko live stream of Ho'oponopono, the power of forgiveness, the power of forgiving. We're gonna get started with protocol, the blowing of the conch shell, a Hawaiian chant, a Hawaiian spoken prayer, and then an English translation for you all to join me in the prayer. And then we're gonna dive straight into the share, straight into the presentation. Mahalo. Nakua ke aumakua ke poe kaiko molokai nui a hina aloha aloha mahalo. Pulika ko, aloha na kua, na oma kua, na poe kahiko, mahalo. Mahalo for bringing us all here together in this live stream, akua. We ask for your presence. We ask for your energy power, your presence to be with us and upon us as we dive into the many layers and levels of Ho'oponopono. For this reason, we also invite our ancestors to be present with us and that they too guide us and shield us and protect us in this sharing. And we thank them for bringing us here to this moment and for all of the blessings that they bestow upon us each and every day. We send this prayer to you now and step into the share of Ho'oponopono with your blessing. We humbly send this prayer to you now in flight with a sacred and a powerful word. Ea mama, ea mama, ea mama, let it fly. Mahalo na kua. So mahalo everyone once again for being here. This is the Mana Okahiko live stream of Ho'oponopono, the power of forgiving. This is part one, and we're going to do a series, a 5-part series of this of the share here live streaming, and you know, journey through all of the knowledge and wisdom and the process of traditional Ho'oponopono. I'd like to first begin with a brief introduction of myself for those of you that are joining that don't know who I am. I am Kumu Pa'a Kawika Foster. Kumu is a teacher and Pa'a is a foundation which is unshakable, it's unmovable, and it is a foundation that is rooted in the spiritual knowledge and wisdom, the cultural practices, the way of life, the way of thinking of my Hawaiian ancestry and the lineage that I belong to, which comes from the island of Molokai, from the valley of Halava. And today we're talking about Ho'oponopono. Later on, I'll also be joined by that of Kumupa'a Catherine Roberts, who is a fellow Haumana of mine, a fellow student of mine through our Kumu Nui, and that is Kumupa'a Nui Lawrence Kalainia Kamani Aki. And it's from him, actually, that I learned this process, this practice of Ho'oponopono as a tradition from our lineage. And there's many things to share. And I'm very much looking forward to sharing all of that here with you in this platform and in this way. And like I said, it's going to be a journey that's going to take us over the next 5 weeks. So love to have you all return and be a part of it, so that it's very clear. All of this is it is live, and I can see your comments. And so if you're inspired to drop a comment, I'll be asking periodically for some engagement. And so if you just drop that into the comments for me, I'll be able to bring it right up, and we can engage in the live format. Oh, I want to say aloha to my mom. There she is, Susan Matthews. She says, "Aloha, son. Happy to be here, and I'm happy to have you here too." Dynamic Jennifer joining us live as well, saying aloha once again. Good to have you back. You were here on Tuesday for the Hawaiian Spiritual Foundations live stream, and now you're here in part one of the Ho'oponopono share. So mahalo for being here. I want to get us fully started now. So we are talking once again of Ho'oponopono, the power of forgiving. And this is a traditional process that comes from the traditional process that I'm sharing actually comes from our lineage. And what I'd like to say is that there are variations of this process of Ho'oponopono from different family lines, and also, of course, from island to island and from land district to land district. So just wanted to put that forward. This is the Ho'oponopono process, which is a tradition that comes from the lineage that I belong to, from the island of Molokai, from the valley of Halawa, the land district of Halawa. Today, we are going to be going all the way through Ho'oponopono as an introduction. We're going to define the word itself, Ho'oponopono. Then we're going to also share a very important and significant story that captures the essence as well as serves as an example of Ho'oponopono, and that's the story of the bowl of light. Then we're going to move into Pohaku. These are the stones, and the various stones that we carry, that we have a tendency of carrying, and that block the light that we're born with. We'll then move into Puli, the power of prayer, and how we utilize prayer in our traditional process of Ho'oponopono, its significance, and and its use and its power. Then we'll speak about the three primary cycles of Ho'oponopono, and these cycles are forgiving, forgetting, and then remembering. So we've got a bit to cover, and let's begin. So Ho'oponopono, everyone. An introduction. The power of forgiving. Ho'oponopono is a traditional practice and a process. Our ancestors developed this process of Ho'oponopono as a means of making things right within our Ohana, within our family. And many of these pillars that I'm talking about, I've shared previously in the Hawaiian Spiritual Foundations um, uh, training that I do, and it is Ohana is one of the pillars that we speak of this foundation. The importance and significance of Ohana is understanding from an ancestral perspective that everything in this universe is family to us. We are related to it, born from the same source, born from the place of origin, which we call Po. Ohana as an understanding of family includes, we are including the wind, the trees, the sun, the moon, the ocean, the land, all of the elements that we find to be in existence here in this universe. We're including those in our Ohana, in our family, and they are indeed our ancestors as well. So Ho'oponopono as a process requires all of the pillars of the way of thinking and the way of life of our ancestors. So Once again, Ohana is one of the pillars that we speak of. And what I mean by Ho'oponopono as a process that requires all of these pillars um, is briefly, the pillars include Akua, which is the higher being, or at least the belief in a higher power. Yeah. In Ho'oponopono, for example, we're not the ones doing it. The higher power that we believe in, that we invite to be present and with us in Ho'oponopono, is actually the one that is doing Ho'oponopono and is granting us the energy power to fulfill and to complete it. So that's one pillar, Akua, and a very important pillar in this foundation that we speak of. Puli is another pillar, which we'll speak about more in depth later on in this share of Ho'oponopono. And Puli is prayer. So that's the second pillar. Moving from Puli, then we can drop into Aloha. And Aloha is unconditional love. It's how we demonstrate, yeah, um, our love unconditionally to that of our ohana, which is another pillar once again. So aloha is a pillar, unconditional love. Pono is a pillar, and pono as a pillar you find also in this word ho'oponopono, which we'll get into the definition of in just a moment. So pono o ia i'o, which is the spirit or the essence of truth. Um, and then we have Ohana, which is family, and everything in this universe being family to us. These are once again are all the pillars. Ohana, Hana is the next pillar, which is the work. Yeah, it's the great work. It's the work that we fulfill on a spiritual, mental, and physical basis. It's the work that we are fulfilling when we do such processes as Ho'oponopono to free and clear our spirit, our mind, and our body of anything that's blocking us. So that's Hana. And then one of the other pillars that we speak of is Makaukau. And Makaukau is a state of being. It's a state of being ready, preparedness, and being ready on all levels and prepared. And it also means knowing. So once again, as we come back in here, Ho'oponopono as a process requires all of the pillars. So all of the pillars of the way of thinking and the way of life of our ancestors, which I've just shared with you. This traditional style of Ho'oponopono has been passed down through our lineage of 50 generations, and it stems from the Valley of Halava from the island of Molokai. So, for example, in our lineage, I'm the 51st generation, and directly behind me is behind me or in front of me is Kumu Pa'anui Lawrence Kala'inea Kamani Aki. He is the 50th generation. And directly behind him is Kumuhula Anakala Filippo Solitario, also from the island of Molokai, from the Valley of Halava. And directly behind Uncle Filippo is Auntie Harriet Ney, another Kumuhula. So these are the Kumus, these are the teachers of that preserve and perpetuate and practice the cultural traditions, the knowledge and the wisdom of our ancestry. And Ho'oponopono is one of those traditional practices and processes that we preserve and we continue to utilize. So that's Ho'oponopono as an introduction. I have a quick quote here for all of you. Um, First, make right your relationship to Na'akua. Now, I want to clarify some of this. Na'akua, yeah, Na in our language is plural, meaning more than one. And Akua, once again, is a higher being. So our ancient ancestors worshipped 400,000 higher beings, okay? Gods and goddesses. And in Ho'oponopono, the essence and the significance of this quote from myself is that in Ho'oponopono, we are making our relationship with them right once again, and that's the first and most important relationship that we free and clear of any kind of baggage or blockage, so that we can engage with the rest of our ohana in that same clarity and vibrancy of connection. Defining the word. And you know what? Before we get into defining the word, I want to come back over here. Um, I want to say aloha to Paula Oliva. Yep, saying aloha. Thank you for being here. It's good to have you. I see you and bringing you up. So I want to help mahalo you for that. And I've got a couple questions um, as we are moving along in here. And oh, the first one is also a mention too. I'd like to mention that if you're inspired to join me live to ask a question or to make a contribution, just let me know in the comments section, and I'll be happy to send you the link and pull you into the the background of the broadcast system and have you actually join me live here to contribute and to ask your questions. So by all means, if you are inspired by anything that you're hearing, then and you'd like to contribute in that way, just let me know. Um, and also, I'd like to inspire you, if you are inspired, to drop us a comment in the comment section once again of what your thoughts are about Ho'oponopono and your understanding so far of what's been presented about Ho'oponopono as a process. I'd love to hear where you're coming from and what your experience is of Ho'oponopono in your personal lives, um, if you have any. Yeah, so, by all means. Okay, here we go. Now we're going back. Going into defining the word. Okay, so Ho'oponopono is a very um, special and particular word. Yeah, and what it shares with us is a multitude of things. And the first, defining the word on a literal level. Okay, defining the word on a literal level um, means breaking it down into its components. And as we break it down, ho'o is a causative. Everyone, ho'o is to make something happen. It's the energy power to do, and pono. Okay, pono is one of the pillars that I spoke about just briefly, as I mentioned them in the pillars. And pono is it's righteousness. Yeah, literally defined today in English, it means righteousness, and it means that everything about us is in its rightful place and where it belongs. And when this happens, then there's an alignment that occurs. Yeah, and this alignment that we speak of through Pono is the alignment that we have to our Ohana, our family, to our ancestors, our guardians, our guardian spirits, our Aumakua, and of course that of the higher power, the higher being that we believe in. That alignment, yeah, is we access that alignment through Pono. Um, and it's a very important word in this word Ho'oponopono because our ancestors are demonstrating something for us, which um, which speaks to us on many different levels, right? Our ancestors were uh, they were very mindful and conscious of the words that they spoke. They had a very clear understanding that words have power, and for this reason, they utilize their words very wisely, um, and and their language was metaphoric. Their language was symbolic, in essence. Um, so, given this understanding about our ancestors, it really was not um, their calling to repeat themselves, and and as you can tell here in the word ho'oponopono, our ancestors are repeating themselves. Pono, pono. They're repeating that word pono, and they're repeating that word pono for a reason. Yeah. And what it signals to us whenever our ancestors repeat themselves is that we need to pay a much closer um, attention to what they're sharing with us, what they're conveying to us. So for this reason, pono pono, to repeat a word, it gives the root word a deeper significance. Okay, and and in this instance, it literally means very right. Okay, so if pono is right, pono pono is very right. Um, and therefore, the entirety of the word, yeah, the entirety of the word translated, ho'oponopono, translates to mean on a literal basis, to make, yeah, ho'o, to make, pono, very right. Um, and so that's defining the word with a bit of an understanding of the way of thinking of our ancestors, and what they're demonstrating with us in the significance of this word pono. Yeah. I'd also like to share that, you know, in an older time, ho'oponopono was done within the entirety of the family. Right. So if we had, for example, a family member that had fallen ill, then the entirety of the family would gather. And they would gather together after being called upon by an elder of the family. So the elder would recognize that one of our family members was ill, and then they would say, "Hey, we need to do ho'oponopono." And they would call together all of the family members, and all of the family members would gather around this sick or ill individual of the family, and this would be 3 or 4 generations, 5 generations deep or more in the living. And then through prayer and ceremony and protocol, then the rest of the Ohana in spirit would also be called forward to be present, or as many generations as it needed to go in the spirit realm. In the physical now, every single member of the family that had gathered would share one at a time anything and everything that they might have thought, had said, or had done that had contributed to this family member's illness or sickness. And then and only then, after it had all been released and every single layer, every single pilikia or trouble had been expressed within the ohana, within the family, and the sick individual or the ill individual was able to forgive and to release what had been presented in that ho'oponopono. It was then and only then that it was seen that that person, that individual could actually heal. Yeah, that the healing power that is granted to us from uh, akua, from the higher power, can actually flow through. Yeah, there's nothing anymore blocking it, and the entirety of the family is in alignment once again. Um, and moving on from that share, yeah, I'd like to now begin to share with you the story of the bowl of light. Okay, and this story of the bowl of light is a story that's shared with us in our lineage, and it's a very powerful and significant story. Mo'olelo is the word for story in our culture, and the bowl of light. This story captures the essence of Ho'oponopono, and it serves as an example of the process that we're doing. So, what I'd like to do now is share that story with all of you. And in the sharing of this story, um, what it is demonstrating for us is, and what it's sharing with us, is that when we are born, we're born with a perfect bowl of light. And this light allows us to fly with the birds, to swim with the fish, to speak to the wind and to the trees, to do all things in this universe. And we have a tendency as humans of picking up what our ancestors called pohakus. And the pohakus, once again, are the stones. So every time that we pick up a pohaku, a stone, and we place it into our bowl of light, the light will dim because light and stone cannot hold the same space. And we can come to a place in our lives where we have acquired many stones within our bowl that it is said our light no longer shines and that we ourselves become stone. However, it's at that very moment in the mo'olelo, in the story, that our ancestors also share with us that if we should tire of carrying these stones within our bowl, we simply have to huli. And huli is to turn over, right? We have to turn the bowl over. We have to huli the bowl, turn it over, and dump the stones out. And in doing so, this allows our light to shine brightly once again. So that's the entirety, that's the fullness of the story of the bowl of light. And what this story does is it serves as an example of the process of ho'oponopono, and it also captures the essence of what we're doing, of what we're striving for within the traditional process of ho'oponopono. So what we're doing in ho'oponopono is we're going in, we're taking that bowl of light, we're turning it upside down, and we're dumping all the stones out. And we're doing this so that our light can shine brightly once again, and our connection to our ancestors, to our Ohana, our family, our ancestors, our guardians, and the higher being, the higher power can be free and clear. Yeah. So that's the fullness of the story of the bowl of light. And I want to mahalo you all for allowing me to share that story. That's a very significant story for us. Yeah. Once again, if you're inspired to ask a question, by all means, drop it into the comments or send me a message. Let me know you'd like to join into the broadcast, and I'd be happy to have you. I want to say aloha to Kristen Lindsay. Saying aloha Kumu Kawika. Thank you so much, Kristen, for if you're still with us. And thank you very much for leaving a comment. Yeah. So, yeah, once again, everyone, if you're inspired to leave a comment, if you got a question, happy to answer any questions and or a contribution. By all means, um, by all means, go ahead and leave it in the comment section. Oh, Donna May Manalani Anderson found Renterham is letting me know she's coming into the broadcast, so she's got something that she's going to share. And before I continue any further, I'd like to bring on Kumu Catherine Roberts to share a bit. Excuse me. Share a bit in regards to the word ho'oponopono or the story of the bowl of light. Any kind of shares that you might have, Kumupa, Catherine, is welcome, and happy to have you come on. And so let me just add you to the live stream now, and you can introduce yourself.
Aloha, Kumu, Kawika Foster, and aloha mai kako to you all out there in internet Facebook Live land. So loving these opportunities to jump on and share some of the teachings. So yeah, look, Ho'oponopono, just, it's fantastic. Great descriptions, love all of your sharings, and the story of the bowl of light, I think, is just one of those very simple, very clear ways of understanding what it is that we're doing in Ho'oponopono. That the story of how we are all born with this incredible light, with this incredible energy power that is available to us to do all things in our lives, and that I know we've all experienced how that light has been dimmed, and then for us to restore that to how it's meant to be, so that we can continue to do all things in our lives. And when I've reflected upon this, I really can remember as a very young child, really knowing that feeling of being connected to more than just this physical human ohana, this physical human family. That sense of being connected to the trees, to the wind, to the earth beneath my feet. You know, I have very vivid memories of lying on the ground and really feeling connected, and seeing the blades of grass and watching the ants and having these conversations, and really acknowledging that connection. And so when I heard the story of returning to that space, there was a very deep knowing, there was a very deep connection to that remembering of that, and a very excited feeling of, wow, I can return to that, and to that ability to communicate with everything around me. So the bowl of light, again, this simple yet very deep story that can demonstrate and help us to visualize this sense of all we really simply need to do is to turn that bowl upside down and let those stones, let that baggage, let all of those emotional reactions that we may have held on to in these experiences, to allow them just to fall away. You know, it's such a simple analogy, and yet we need help in doing that. And I really love that our ancestors have given us this process, which is on a very deep spiritual level. You know, it's not in my culture, there was a lot of therapy, there was a lot of counseling, there was a lot of talking about these stones, there was a lot of going in and working them out, and revisiting. I remember I used to get very frustrated of, oh, do I have to tell that story again? You know, every time I went to see someone because I wasn't happy or because I felt disconnected. And to come across this process which enabled me to go in and to bring forth not just the story, but to bring forth that thing that I was holding on to that was stopping me from having that connection to all things, and to once and for all, it's done. Like, we're bringing it forward, we are releasing it, we are forgiving it, we are forgetting it, and it's done. You know, it's such a pragmatic way of, this is done now. You can put this down now. This is not to be brought and picked up again. That was really just such a powerful thing for me. Yeah, I'll never forget. I don't know, I think everyone always remembers their very first Ho'oponopono session, because it's, even though it's kind of this really simple, you think, wow, that's really simple, but it's really such a profound moment where you go, okay, I'm bringing that forward, and I'm finding out what it is that's the baggage, or the thing that I'm holding on to, and now it's done. You know, I am bringing it forth in front of my ancestors to the higher power. It's like I'm completely letting this go and handing this over, so that it is no longer part of my part of me and my life experience. And to tell my mind that this is done, to tell my spirit it is free, to then I remember, I remember my first session was bringing forward something that I was constantly going back to, constantly thinking about, constantly trying to work out. And I remember driving back south from Brisbane after my first Ho'oponopono session with Kumu Lawrence, and then my mind would, I would almost like tested it to try and go back to think about the thing that I had let go of. And it was like this burst of like freedom, or this energy that was like, no, it's like, it's done. It's no longer there, no longer, it was no longer part of me. It was like, it was freed, it was gone. And I just remember how liberating that felt, was to no longer be carrying around this thing that I was constantly trying to work out, or figure out, or process, or was taking up so much space within myself. I'm just noticing there's a message here about my internet, Kalamai, we've been having internet problems. So yeah, I hope you've got to get some of that. But yeah, mahalo for bringing this forward, Kumu, Kawika. It is such an important process, and it's such important to clarify that the ho'oponopono that we have been taught is very different to the other forms that are out there of the mantra, of something that you do on your own. This is very much something that needs to be done in the presence of a Luna Ho'oponopono practitioner who understands these concepts of the Pohakus, the bowl of light, the clearing of our connection to our higher beings and ancestors, and how to make sure that we are free and clear once and for all of all these things. So, yeah, mahalo.
Yeah, mahalo to you too. Cool, Catherine. Yeah, wonderful share about the significance of the story of the bowl of light, and of course, the the power of Ho'oponopono, the 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 intricacy, the detail that our ancestors really put into this process, and how it's not it's not a band-aid, right? It's an actual process to, as you said, to finally to get rid of the pohakus that we carry, to get rid of anything that's blocking or hindering us, and to be done with it. I really appreciated that component that you brought forward. That it's this isn't something that you do and then turn around and pick it up again, right? So, ho'oponopono in this way, in this process, and in the way that our ancestors, created it, and have managed to preserve it, it's really to get us back to the fullness and the brilliance of our light, and to actually never come away from that again. um Granted that there are experiences that we can have in the future where we end up picking up, um we there's the potential of picking up future stones, that we have this process, that it finally, it frees and clears and allows us the opportunity to put away the pohaku, or the stones that we've been carrying. um, and to that point, I'd like to also share that for everyone, that this Ho'oponopono as a process in an older time was something that we were doing on a daily basis, right? This, yeah. So it was something that, if anything happened throughout the day, that um, that was even, that was had any kind of characteristic of becoming a pohaku or a stone, well, then you did Ho'oponopono before you went to sleep, right? You made that right.
Yeah,
Before I
and that, yeah,
Go
and that,
ahead.
I mean, I love that. I love that. I mean, of course, those of us who haven't been brought up in a culture where this was every day, there's a certain amount of us needing to really download or to offload or to empty out some of those really sometimes very old stones that we've been carrying. But it comes a point where it becomes a way of living or a way of being, that you get to recognize those. Oh, that's a stone. Oh, ho'oponopono needs, and it
Yeah,
becomes really a joyous and a way of, yeah, it's like, I don't know, it becomes part of, like, not quite brushing your teeth, but it becomes a part of becoming in alignment, of living the teachings. And initially it can take a bit of getting in there and finding those stones, but it becomes easier and easier to do this process as
right.
you keep, as you've done it a few times, and ultimately to get to the place where we no longer have to do ho'oponopono because we are in so alignment. But hey, this is where the hana, the work, comes in, is to keep doing it until we get to that place. But it is such a fantastic thing that's been gifted to us, and the ancestors, as I've heard you say, they understand what it is to be in this realm or in this time. They deliberately gave us these things, understanding what it is like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They knew it. Yeah. They had experienced it themselves. They had lived through it themselves, and it's in their wisdom that that they developed the process and managed to pass it down, so that when we would inevitably pick up our own stones, that we'd have we'd have a means to get rid of them, to do the work to clear the bowl. Mahalo.
And
Thank
I
you.
just have to say, I love the fro giving and the fro getting.
Yeah. What are you talking? What are you sharing with me?
Go back to your presentation and you'll see, hey, fro giving and fro getting.
Sometimes that well, that
We're
just means that
live.
yeah, we're live and we need to edit that. But before I go, before I send you off, and I'll hopefully bring you back later. Will you talk to us about pohakus for a bit?
Okay, so pohakus, well, as Lawrence likes to call them, our Kumu, he likes to call them baggages. These are the things that we pick up, as it says here, from our experiences in our lives. And they are things like, anger. You've got jealousy, which is spelt wrong as well. Fear, worry, doubt, all of those things that basically take us off that line of being in aloha, of being pono. Anything that is, I don't want to use the word negative emotions, but that's kind of, I suppose, in our Western way of thinking, we give them those kind of labels. But they are things that bring us out of alignment, and they are these emotional reactions or responses to experiences. And I know from my own experiences, when I was a child, if I didn't quite understand something and I didn't have someone there to help me understand it, I would pick up something like, I'd be really angry or I'd be really scared, and I would hold on to those things. And it wasn't until I was able to bring them forward, to able to go in and understand, and to realize that I had been carrying these things and that it was no longer needed anymore. It was no longer relevant. It was something from the past. It was something that was no longer necessary to be carrying with me. So those are the things that we go looking for. And sometimes in a session of ho'oponopono, you need to go into the story. You need to remember those experiences and go back to where you collected and picked up these pohakus, these stones. And in order to recognize them and understand them, and then go, oh my, I don't need to have these anymore. So, as you've said beautifully, we need to go back, we need to remember so that we can forget, so that we can remember again. We need to remember where these stones came from, so that we can forgive and forget them and let them go, so that we can remember who we really are and the light that we can return to. So yeah, that's the purpose of Ho'oponopono, is to find these pohakus, these stones, and to free them from ourselves, and to move on. So yeah.
Mahalo. Thanks for joining me, and for tackling those, and also the suggested edits. Okay, Mahalo. I'm gonna remove you, and come back to you in a bit. Okay, everyone, I want to mahalo you for being here and for joining me, joining us. This is the Mano Kahiko live stream of Ho'oponopono, the power of forgiving, or forgiving, as it should be. And we're halfway through this first day, this first presentation. This is actually part one, and there's going to be 4 more parts following this. So every week, Thursday, at the same time, 3 p.m., you'll see it. So I want to mahalo you all for being here, and I've got some questions for all of you to engage with me in the comments section, and that is, what kind of pohakus do you carry around, or what kind of pohakus did you carry around in the past? Yeah, and some of the lessons that you learned in freeing and clearing yourself of those pohakus, of those stones. I'd like to, drop back into the presentation here. And now we're talking about puli. Okay, so puli is prayer, and it's the power of prayer. In Ho'oponopono, we utilize our puli, we utilize our prayers uh, at the opening and also at the closing of a Ho'oponopono session. And the reason that we do this is because the opening prayer, it sets the confines, it sets the sacred confines in which we conduct the session of Ho'oponopono, and it creates that container in which we do the work of Ho'oponopono. And we utilize our prayer also at the end of Ho'oponopono to seal it, right? To close the door on the session. And also to ensure that all of the pohakus that we have brought forward, we have released, we've forgiven, we've let go of within the session of Ho'oponopono remain in the session, and then lifts it. Yeah, that closing prayer lifts the entirety of the session of Ho'oponopono, the stones included, up to our ancestors, to our guardians, to the higher power, or the higher beings that we've invited to be with us in the opening prayer. So that's really the importance and the significance of prayer in this tradition, this tradition and traditional process of Ho'oponopono. It creates the sacred container in which we do Ho'oponopono. And prayer is also really important to do, given that many of the stones, many of the pohakus that we're faced with and that we're dealing with in freeing and clearing and forgiving in Ho'oponopono can be pretty heavy stones, and so this prayer, the opening and closing prayers really assist us in capturing the entirety of those pohakus and ensuring that those pohakus are no longer there. Yeah, that those stones are no longer there. I have Donna May Manalani Anderson that's joined in the broadcast, and I'd love to have her come up and introduce herself. So I'm going to add her now. Introduce yourself, Donna, and give us a talk about puli or prayer in your life.
Mahalo, Kumu. Hi, everybody. I'm Donna May Manalani Anderson of Rentahim, and I am the Haumana of Kumu Kawika. We first met in 2017 for Lomi Lomi training, and that was my first introduction to Ho'oponopono, and certainly traditional Ho'oponopono. I was really lucky that I hadn't even heard of the mantra. I hadn't really heard of anything Hawaiian, I guess, other than my mum, who was a huge Elvis fan, and there was lots of like Blue Hawaii. So I was like nothing traditional. And it was day 2 or 3 of that training. We went in for Ho'oponopono. And I remember the night before, like the preparation before actually having a ho'oponopono session was almost as important as the ho'oponopono, because Kumu had shared many of the mo'olelo and the story of what we're actually doing in ho'oponopono. And somehow, by the grace of our kua, like they just allowed it to really settle in to a real level of understanding of what possibly could be happening on this next day. And I mean, it was a wild night. It was really getting me mau for the session. And I realized at that point in my life, I hadn't actually forgiven. And when I thought I had forgiven, or it felt good within me, I had not taken the action to demonstrate what this forgiveness was with my family. And I hadn't taken the actions to really solidify the work that I had done. It was like forgiveness was this big secret that I kept within myself. And I was like, yes, I've forgiven. Haha. Like, I'm good. You're fine over there. But it was really important that once that, what we call that aka cord, that like relationships are the most important thing in our understanding. Once that was forgiven and free and clear, that we used it. And I really picked up that phone. I remember after that session, I picked up the phone to every single person and just made those calls. And I remember you just being like, whoa, did you just do all them? I said, yeah, like I'm ready. For me, I am ready. And it's been a process for almost the last, 4.5, 5 years that we've been connected, Kawika, to not wait when forgiveness is needed, and to not wait when there's even a disease or a potential of a Pohaku coming. And that leads me into your question on pule, on prayer. And I loved a sharing from Kumu Lawrence with, I believe it was the grandfather, that when there was a lot to make right with Akua, the pule would be very long. And I just remember last night after, in a personal moment in my life, I guess I'm awaiting for something to come back into alignment regarding a restitution and an action to be taken to settle into place. And that pule just went, it felt like forever. I was like, come on, all right, I need to make sure that this is good. And I came to understand that pono is not easy. Like, pono is really not easy. and the conditioning we have to want to feel like we have a great relationship, feel like we're ohana, like act like we're ohana. But at the end of the day, is it pono? Like, let's not just be kind if it isn't pono. And I realized that this simple action to get it pono again, you may not be liked, you may be misunderstood, but if you're pule every day, 24/7 and then some, it's maikai, it's good. You can have a really good feeling deep down within your na'au that it's okay to reinstall and set pono in our relationships. So making right with our kua first is my favorite sharing every time. And then you are mau, you are ready to make right with your ohana, your immediate family around you. I feel like that's the juice of where I wanted to go.
Yeah. That's all good. That was beautiful. Mahalo for that, and mahalo for, thank you for joining me in here. It's a new thing, and it's good to have some engagement and some to have you join me and to make some shares and make some contributions. So before you go, I want to continue us into the presentation, and can you talk to us all about forgiving?
Forgiving. All right. So there's 3 important stages in forgiving. It's forgiving, forgetting, and remembering. Yeah. So in order to forgive, we need to forget. So this is something I actually heard from my kapuna and my father. It's forgive and forget. And I was lucky to have that understanding where I hadn't separated the two. So forgive and forget. All right, it's done with. The sun's going to rise tomorrow. Let's move on. So in order to really forgive, we have to forget the hurt and the pain that the Pohaku has caused in our life. And that's really where the hana is. That's where the work is. To forgive, we need to remember the time before that discrepancy or that experience or whatever caused us to pick up the Pohaku took place, and reinstall the light that we're born with. And that can be quite a journey for people to really get to forgiveness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it takes a real introspective look, the ability to really come and take what I feel is kuleana, like within yourself. When you're strong in your kuleana, you can work through forgiveness and understand your place in everything that's happened in your life. Yeah. Mahalo for the question.
Yeah. No, great. Okay, mahalo. I'm gonna send you back, and I appreciate you coming up, Manalani. Appreciate it a lot. Okay, mahalo.
Mahalo.
Okay, everyone. So that's my direct haumana. That's my direct student, my only student, and my direct student, and yeah, she did a great job of speaking about forgiving, right? And particularly these 3 cycles of forgiveness that we speak about. And I'm just going to round those out because this is the end. This is the final components, the 3 final components of today's share. This part 1. So I'd like to drop back here. And just say Alondra, aloha to you. I see you in the comment section, and mahalo you for being here again. I saw you the other day in the Hawaiian Spiritual Foundations topic, and mahalo. So we're going to go into forgiving. Okay, so the 3 cycles that we speak of in Ho'oponopono. The first cycle is forgiving itself, and it's the power of forgiving. And what this means is that this is about freedom. Yeah, it's about absolute freedom, and it's about recognizing that the Pohakus prevent us. Right, so that fear, that anger, that hatred, that sadness prevent us from having that clear, direct line of communication and connection to our ancestors, and indeed to our own light that we're born with. So we are freeing, the entirety of our being, our spirit, our mind, and our body. And releasing and letting go. And forgiving takes place in the present, right? It takes place in the here and now. In Ho'oponopono, we enter into Ho'oponopono and in the present moment, and we forgive in the right here and in the right now. So that as we move into the second cycle of forgiveness, we're able to achieve the forgetting, right? And the forgetting, much as Donna presented, and spoke about, is that forgiving and forgetting they are one and the same. Yep. In our ancient and in our ancestral understanding, to say that you forgive but you do not forget means that you do not forgive at all. So these 2 components come hand in hand with one another, in this traditional process of ho'oponopono. And I'd like to make it very clear, particularly right here in this part of the presentation, that forgetting, this has nothing to do with pretending. Okay, what we mean by that is we all have experiences in our lives that have the potential of blocking our light. And what our ancestors are sharing with us in this component of forgetting is that we are not pretending that those experiences never happened. Rather, it's about forgetting the hurt, the pain, the fear, the anger that those experiences have caused us. Yeah, so that as we reflect upon our life as a whole, yeah, that those stones are no longer there, and that we can come to a place of love unconditional, right? So aloha is one of these really important pillars of our Hawaiian spiritual foundation that we speak of and that we share. And aloha, once again, it's that unconditional love. So and to love unconditionally, it means loving every component of our being, yeah, equally, and um, embracing, accepting all of the facets of ourselves, and and also not just coming to terms with the things that have happened to us, but indeed loving them unconditionally, understanding them fully, accepting them fully, and loving them unconditionally. So that's the component of forgetting that I'd like to make clear. And then the last point, of course, is we forget the pohakus. Once again, the pohakus is what we are forgetting. And we do so that we can remember. Yeah, the remembering component, the remembering cycle of ho'oponopono, this is the juicy stuff. Yeah, this is the this is the good stuff. I even have it written there. Okay, this is the good stuff. Okay, it's about remembering is about it's about the light. It's about the light that we're born with, the light that we've carried inside of us. It's about it's the joy in overcoming, of releasing, of forgiving and forgetting those pohakus, those stones, which have attempted to and or have been successful for a period of time in preventing our light from shining in its full capacity. So that remembering component it is absolutely what it's about. Okay, it's getting back to the fullness of our light, the wholeness of our being. Yeah, that's what remembering is. And many a times what happens is we have to take ourselves back in ho'oponopono. We have to take ourselves back to the time, to the place prior to picking up the pohaku, yeah, in the first place. So, and sometimes, speaking on that, sometimes it means having to go all the way back to the time of our birth, when we were pure, yeah, and fully connected, and that light was shining brightly. So that remembering component, once again, I just want to say that that's the whole goal, yeah, to get back to that light, to get back to the fullness and the wholeness of our being. So I'd like to get back over here and say that if you have any questions, yeah, if you have any comments about the any of the three cycles of this, of ho'oponopono, the three cycles of forgiving, forgetting, or remembering, to drop it in the comment section, and let us know. Let me know what your thoughts are about these components. And um, I'm aware, particularly with the forgetting component. Yeah, so many times I've had many Ho'oponopono sessions where that component, that requirement of forgetting, is really a difficult component to capture, yeah, in its essence. So if you're finding difficulty in understanding and in capturing that essence, go ahead and write it to me in the comments, or also get a hold of me directly. I'm totally available. So my email and my contact information will be in the description of the video, and you can, if you're inspired to get a hold of me directly, by all means do that. That's what I'm here to do. other than just um, get my spelling incorrect on a live broadcast. So, but we are at the conclusion, everyone, of this live stream of Ho'oponopono, and I'd just like to do a quick review of everything that we covered today. Yeah, we covered Ho'oponopono as an introduction. We defined the word, yeah, to make, very right, Ho'oponopono. We shared the story of the bowl of light and the significance of the light that we're born with, of the sharing of the Pohakus, and the fine example and the essence that the story of the bowl of light captures for us about Ho'oponopono. We spoke about Catherine Roberts had some really great insights into the story of the bowl of light, and also spoke briefly about the Pohakus, the stones, introduced the Pohakus and stones. And then, of course, we did Puli, the power of prayer. And then we were joined by my Homana, Donna Manalani, and she spoke about prayer in her life, and gave us some really great beginnings to the sharing of the cycles of forgiving, forgetting, and remembering. And of course, then we rounded all that out by going a bit deeper into all three of those cycles. So I want to say mahalo, everyone, for joining, and I'd like to invite Kumu Catherine Roberts back up if you have any words of closing.
Any profound words of closing?
Closing.
Look, really, as our Kumu says, do we have a choice? Do we really have a choice whether or not we're going to work on releasing and freeing and clearing these pohakus from our being, from our bowls of light? No, not if you want to be happy, not if you want to love unconditionally, not if you want to live a path that is free and clear and in alignment and connection with our ancestors and the higher beings, whatever they might be for you. If we really want to live that life, then we need to do Ho'oponopono or whatever is the similar practice that may be from your culture or from your ancestors. But we really need to make this process available to everyone who wants to grow and do the work. So mahalo for continuing Kumu Kawika to bring Ho'oponopono and the teachings forward through all these wonderful platforms that you are now diving into. It's such a necessary thing, and I'm really love supporting you in any way that I can to continue doing this work. So well done, and just love the look of it, love what you're doing, and keep up the great work. You're a great example, and your Kumu is very proud, I know, of what you're doing. So mahalo, and hui ho, everyone. See you again either here or one of the other platforms.
Right on. Mahalo. Mahalo, Kumu Catherine. Hui ho. Yeah, we'll talk soon. Mahalo. And of course, I'd like to also invite Haumana Dana Manalani up. Closing words.
Mahalo, Kumu. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with letting go and being happy. There is nothing wrong with doing that. Do it today. Do it now. Our Pohakus are so good at just letting us play a victim for forever if we let them. And just stand firm with your ancestors and not with your Pohakus. Know your source, nana ike kumu, and put in the hana to really keep walking that line of oia'i'o, of truth, of universal truth, and of aloha. Mahalo, Kumu. I really enjoyed this live stream. I look forward to the next one if you'll have me again.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Mahalo. Ahui ho. Okay, everyone. So we are pow. We are finished, as we say in our language. We're pow. We are finished. We are done. I want to mahalo you for being here. And this conversation, this discussion, this share doesn't end here with the end of the live stream. If you, like I said, if you are inspired to get a hold of me in some of the back channels or any of the other means in which you can make direct contact with me, you'll find those options in the description of this video, and I'll be happy to hear from you. I want to go back over here last time to the comments and just say mahalo to everyone that left a comment and for engaged. Alondra, yeah, absolutely, yes. Okay, this was very clear. I got it. Frogret. That's so funny. That's yeah. Gotta I guess I gotta have another set of eyes on some of the editing going on. But mahalo, Alondra, for being here once again. Oh, and I see that you do have a question here. Okay. How can you forget if the problems keep repeating due to trauma? So you forget and things keep repeating. That's a very, very good question, Alondra. And, okay, so here's the direct answer to that. Anytime that we are unhappy in our lives, the teaching from our ancestors is that we have to create some sort of change. And the teaching behind change is very simple, and that is that if we don't create the change, we'll continue to be unhappy. So when we are speaking about this component of forgetting and being able to forget, yeah, it means changing one's life. And many a times, yeah, it's also what it means to forget, and what it means to change is to literally change the circumstances of your life in the present moment. And that's very simply said. Yeah, it's very simply said, and the teachings of our ancestors are very simple. But we know and clearly understand the difficulty that presents for many people in their lives. And as direct as that that contribution is to your question, that's what our ancestors have to share with us. Yeah, they never said that this was going to be easy. Yeah. Aloha, love unconditional, it's simple. Yeah. Getting there is not easy. And for many people, yeah, this question about forgetting arises. And I want to thank you deeply for bringing it forward and for presenting it here in the comment section, and presenting an opportunity to share some of the ancestral knowledge behind this component of forgetting. Yeah. If they keep presenting, yeah, then it's time to create some change. Mahalo. Okay, dynamic Jennifer. And I'm happy, Alondra, if you have any more questions about that, I'm happy, like I said, to continue it in the back channel communication. So email me directly, and I'll be happy to get to you and share some more about that. Dynamic Jennifer, one more time. I was wondering the same. Okay, good. All right, so I see you. Okay. So dynamic Jennifer, you were also asking, yeah, also wondering the same. Yeah. What does one do if things continue? It's again, it's a simple answer, and I understand fully that it's not that it's not always easy to do. Um, but what it really means is being really direct with your light. It means being really direct with your presence, with your life, and making some really hardcore decisions and changes as to what you allow to be present in your life. And if if other individuals in your life, in your family, or in your relationships, or in your work, or your career are triggering those the continuation of, for example, the trauma or the dis-ease of your circumstances, then it means you got to get rid of them. Period. End of story. And that's as direct as I can be about it. Yeah. When we're dealing, for example, in Ho'oponopono with abusive relationship, physically abusive relationships, for example, it's time to go. Yeah. There's no question about it anymore. Yeah. And the thought, yeah, in the minds of those that are suffering from physical um, abuse in that way, yeah, that you know don't stick around to see if they'll change, basically. And that's very direct, and it's very straightforward, and that's what I have to offer to both of you, Alondra and Jennifer, on that topic. Yeah, on that point of change. Mandy, aloha mai kako, mahalo. Can I just ask, when are you talking on Clubhouse? Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to include that one in this live stream, but Donna, you can get to her in the back channels there. Mahalo. Oh, and you did. Okay, good. Aloha, Alondra. Oh, and mahalo. Okay, so I see you here, Alondra. Thank you. Yeah, and I thank you too, Alondra, and also for this share, for being, presenting it. I understand, particularly, violent happenings in our lives. Yeah, and those relationships require, yeah, some deep healing for oneself, and that's why we have Ho'oponopono. So, mahalo very much, everyone. I want to appreciate you all for being here. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your contributions. And yeah, like I said, we want to continue this conversation. I'm more than happy to do so. Just get a hold of me. Hui ho, everyone. Next week, we're doing Ho'oponopono Part 2. We're going even further into the traditional process, and that's Thursday the 9th at 3 p.m. For me here in Australia, Australian Eastern Standard Time. You'll have to do the time conversions for that on your end. Yeah, but next week, Thursday, September 9th, 3 p.m., we're doing Part 2, Ho'oponopono. Mahalo, malama pono, take care of your pono, and a hui ho until we meet again. Hopefully, I'll see you next week.